Why did you want to write a book about AJ Foyt?
Well, it didn't start out that way, at least not in 2019 when I started. I had done a book called Black Noon
Hmm.
about the 1964 Indy 500, and where a couple drivers are killed, Eddie Sachs, Dave McDonald, and AJ happened to win that race. So I'd interviewed him before for that book. And when that was done in 2015, I reached out and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a bio on AJ," and didn't hear back from him at all. And it wasn't until 4 years later when I was writing a different book about racing in 1967 when I went to interview him in Houston. The next day, they asked me, "Would you want to do the bio of AJ now?" And I said, "No, that's way too much work. No, I'm not interested." Went home. My wife asked me, "Hey, how'd the interview go?" I said, "It was great." And believe it or not, they asked me to write AJ's interview. And she goes, "Well, what did you tell him?" So I told them, "No, it was too much work." And she came around and looked at me. And she's not a race fan, but she knows who AJ Foyt is. And she goes, "How do you tell AJ Foyt no?"
Mm.
And the more I thought about it, I said, "All right, I'll give it a go." I knew it was going to be a lot. I didn't know it was going to be this much, but I knew it was going to be a lot. And it's been a great ride.
Yeah, I knew that it would be a lot. I mean, the point with AJ Foyt, who we'll get into his many accomplishments, but it's almost a where do you start, right, Art?
Absolutely. When he was 5 years old or 6 years old, I can't remember. He ran his first race,
Right.
and his dad was a midget racer, and his earliest memories are sitting in his dad's garage, listening to street racers and or listening to race talk, bench racing talk. So yeah, it starts literally on day one.
Hmm. Well, so you decide that this is what you're going to do. To this point, what's out there that was definitive about AJ Foyt? In other words, how could you separate yourself from other things that have been written about this legendary race car driver?
There were a couple bios early on. One that came out in '67, I think, and another one right around 1980. But nothing since then. No real biography since then. Partly because AJ didn't want to cooperate with it.
Hmm.
He didn't want to deal with it. And even those early bios were, they weren't very factual. They were more glorifying of AJ than anything else. One was an autobiography that one reviewer said, "I kept waiting for the point where AJ actually walked on water." It took a lot of heat. It's entertaining. It's a good read, but it's over the top. And that's one thing I made clear with this was one, I didn't want to do an autobiography. I wanted to do a legitimate biography, and it had to be everything, the good and the bad.